Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. We are at a crucial choice point in American history. One of the biggest choice points since the Civil War. President Donald Trump has become the first president in American history to be impeached twice. He is determined not to leave the White House. Even if he is forced to move out in body, he seems determined to continue his claim that the Oval Desk and the Resolution Desk, the Oval Office and the Resolution Desk, are in reality his. And worse, Trump seems determined to continue his struggle back to the White House by violent means. As his former vice president for construction at the Trump Organization, Barbara Rez, put it, if all else fails, he'll burn down the house. The biggest battle over the next few weeks will be between those who still want a violent insurrection, a bloody pro-Trump revolution, and those of us who don't. Where will Donald Trump get his muscle once he no longer is the military's commander-in-chief? It appears that Trump has done two things no previous modern president has managed to achieve, or has even wanted to. He seems to have pulled together the nation's more than 165 militia movements as a unified whole. He appears to have given them a common cause, and he appears to have given them a common philosophy, the philosophy of QAnon, the movement that says the world is being taken over by a conspiracy of child-raping, Satan-worshipping globalists backed by George Soros. QAnon calls its imagined enemy a worldwide criminal mafia that includes everyone from Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi to, in all probability, even me. This is a mafia they believe only one man on planet Earth can defeat, President Donald Trump. Donald John Trump, who some evangelicals believe was sent by God himself to save America from godless communism, or from what one pro-Trump message boarder calls Joe Biden's fascist dictatorship. Trump's QAnon and militia followers say that we are at war. They say that the January 6th insurrection was just the opening battle. Civil war soon, declares one anonymous Trump supporter on 4chan. Says another, if Biden is sworn in, all bets are off. They haven't seen anything yet. They are just scratching the surface. Adds another pro-Trump message boarder, Trump was right. This is only the beginning and it's going to be wild. Yet another Trump supporter lists as Trump's major achievement that he has, quote, made the right be willing to die to achieve its goals and radicalized it to be open to the prospect of domestic terrorism. On a pro-Trump message board, another contributor said, they are scared shitless because they know Trump never loses and never gives up. They know he's about to start smashing their house of cards with tricks they didn't even know existed. He's the most dangerous man in the world right now, and they don't have a clue what he's about to hit them with. Then there's the cult of Trump, the new religion taking shape around him. It's a religion that smacks of the early Christian belief that Jesus arose from the tomb on this third day, the Muslim belief in a hidden imam who disappeared in 941 AD, over 1,000 years ago, and will return to usher in the days of peace and justice, and the early British belief that King Arthur wasn't really dead, but would reappear one day to save his people. One 4chan contributor stated, quote, it's clear they will try to use deep fakes to pretend that Trump left office on the 20th and that Biden is president, but it's also clear, the 4chan contributor says, that Trump is still in control, and even though we can't see him, he will still be president after the 20th. We must spread the truth about who is still in power. Yes, according to this 4chan contributor, Trump will reappear as president the way that Jesus rose from the tomb. These dedicated Trumpists have declared that President Trump has foreseen every move, including every seeming defeat. One Trump 4chan message boarder says Trump is a 7-dimensional chess player, and he will signal when the time is right to pull the trigger. to arise with weapons and take the next step in the pro-Trump war, the phase Trump's adepts call the storm. What's worse, some of Trump's evangelical militia and QAnon supporters believe that an all-out war will usher in a 1,000-year kingdom of Christ. America's right-wing militias own what they call camps on substantial numbers of acres in America's secluded countrysides, and have been using this distant terrain to practice for war with live weapons and bombs for over 40 years. Trump's mobilization of these forces, no matter how accidental, may be why late on the afternoon of January 13th, FBI Director Christopher Wray and acting United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Ken Cuccinelli held a 45-minute phone call with police chiefs nationwide, warning them to be on the lookout for trouble until the January 20th inauguration. And Trump's call on what he calls his Second Amendment people may be why 2 days later VP Mike Pence visited the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a briefing by the FBI's Wray on, quote, potential armed protests leading up to the inauguration, close quote. But Trump supporters do not want an inauguration at all, said the right-wing newsletter DC Swamp Watch 2 days after the impeachment and 6 days before the inauguration. What we're witnessing right now is the single biggest attempted coup of a sitting president that America has ever seen. President Donald J. Trump has been targeted for removal not by the American people, but by the fake news media, big tech, and the swamp rats that are infesting Washington. On election night, President Trump was up huge in all the swing states he needed to win in order to get reelected. But in the dead of the night, ballots magically appeared in favor of Biden and only Biden. This is statistically impossible and evidence of coordinated voter fraud at a massive level. That's why we need to act now. We're putting a massive campaign together of grassroots patriots like yourself in order to stop the steal. We must not let Trump concede under any circumstance. The media is trying to say that Biden won, but the media does not get to call the election. We need a full audit of every single legal vote in every single swing state. As you read this, lawsuits are being filed in order to challenge this election. We will not go down without a fight. We are not conceding, and we will never give up, says this mailing from Trumpists. Then there are the statements of Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, the former member of the military brass who has called for Trump to declare martial law, invoke a state of emergency, call on the Insurrection Act of 1807, suspend the election, rerun it under military control, and take Trump's 60 cases alleging fraud to military tribunals. Says the Lieutenant General, you all know the attack on the Capitol was done by Antifa. What's more, says McInerney, James Comey, the former FBI director, sold Hammer and Scorecard, a top-secret program, to the Chinese. The software works by modulating the voting just enough so that the candidate they want wins. In other words, according to McInerney, Biden's win by 7 million votes was the result of a Chinese manipulation of the American election system. What's more, says McInerney, he received notification at 11:20 p.m. on the night of the election that the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISI, which was behind Osama bin Laden, was also in America's voting machines. Pakistan today is a Chinese ally. In other words, Biden is not a valid president. He is a puppet of China. Then there's McInerney's claim that COVID was a biological attack. So what does McInerney recommend? Quote, Trump could declare an emergency, he says. Another odd bedfellow, My Pillow founder, Mike Lindell, backs McInerney's lunacy. Lindell walked into a meeting with the president January 15th with these words on the top of his pre-meeting notes: martial law if necessary. Meanwhile, the impeachment has divided the Republicans into two factions. On one side are the Trump loyalists like Republican Mike Huckabee, who called the impeachment a lynching. Loyalists like conservative talk show host and head of Prager University, Dennis Prager, who says that the left is using the Capitol invasion the way the Nazis used the Reichstag fire, to establish a dictatorship, and loyalists like Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who in her tweets tosses around the hashtag Biden crime family. Greene, a QAnon believer, tweeted that she would file articles of impeachment against Joe Biden on January 21st, his first day in office. There is a genuine concern that the gun-toters among these Trump loyalists might kill their Democratic colleagues. These are congressmen and senators who walk into the Capitol building carrying their weapons all the way to their desks. Not to mention that these people might kill the 10 so-called Republican traitors who voted for impeachment. And there are accusations that some of these die-hard Trumpers took the insurrectionists on tours of the Capitol building on January 5th, the day before the uprising, to show them key locations like Nancy Pelosi's office. Key spots to target with their determination to execute Trump's enemies. Meanwhile, the anti-Trump Republican side consists of institutionalists like Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, who told sources that President Trump had committed impeachable offenses and that McConnell hoped the second impeachment would help the Republican Party rid itself of Trumpism. And Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and ambassador to the UN, who the day after the insurrection sent out fundraising letters for her new conservative PAC, Stand for America, that didn't even mention Trump's existence. If it's any comfort, an Ipsos poll found that 56% of Republicans identified themselves as traditional Republicans, while only 36% identified as Trump Republicans. And Rasmussen, a pro-Republican, pro-Trump polling organization, says that 50% of likely U.S. voters said Donald Trump should be removed from office before January 20th, before the inauguration. But there's a catch. 64% of Republicans said they supported Trump's recent behavior the week of the insurrection. And 57% of Republicans said that Trump should be the Republican presidential candidate in 2024. Which leaves the question of what will happen after January 20th. If Trump is forced into exile, will he continue to try to lead a violent insurrectionist and revolutionary movement? Will he pardon the 200 insurrectionists being rounded up by the FBI for trashing the Capitol building? Will he let them off the hook? And by the way, for killing a policeman. Will he let them off the hook so they can use violence once again when he calls for it? Will Donald Trump continue to unify a movement that was quiet for decades, the American militia movement, the white supremacist movement that wants full-scale war and believes that war will allow it to cleanse North America of blacks and Jews and return it to we the people, we the white Christian people? And will that movement get the bloody revolution, the death-drenched civil war it has hungered for decades? A revolution run in the name of Donald Trump? We shall have to see. This is Howard Bloom, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how.